Hello and welcome back to Jacob's Toys. Today's video marks the beginning of a new series that I'm doing called Behind the Toys. I had an amazing opportunity to catch up with Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas and talk to him about his collection and collecting in general. So without further ado, let's get straight into that video. Taboo, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, man.
You know, it means a lot. Obviously, everyone knows you from your music and stuff. More recently, you've done the Marvel stuff with the comic books. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, how did that come about?
Well, I've been a toy collector. First, my love and my passion for storytelling in the comic space started with collecting toys. I've been an avid toy collector since, I want to say, when I started making money so that I can actually afford to buy these crazy vintage toys from around the world. I mean, from 70s to like, I want to say like the 90s, 70s, 80s, and 90s is what I collect. Mostly LJN wrestlers from the 80s. I love, you know, a lot of Ninja Turtles, Transformers, G.I Joe, specifically G.I Joe. My USS flagship from 1984 is one of my holy grails because I still have it in the box.
I was gonna say, is that the one that I saw in the video that you were panning around?
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
My Tron cycle is another holy grail because, you know, it's like from the 80s. So, and it's an actual replica of the Tron cycle that I wrote, that I would have in my tour called the End Tour with Black Eyed Peas in 2008. And I had my Tron cycle because I love toys, and Tron was one of the, you know, one of my go-to movies in the 80s. But it started with my love for toys and just the nostalgia of collecting. And from that point, I was able to go to this amazing gathering called Comic-Con in San Diego, California, which you know about. And I got to meet a lot of like-minded toy nerds. And from the toy nerd geek mode vibe, I started meeting all these different vendors. I started going through different booths and different aisles where I got to actually meet amazing people from Marvel. And the first person I met from Marvel was this guy named Daniel Fink, who is an editor at Marvel. And, you know, I remember he would ask me like, yo, do you have anything to present to Marvel? And I didn't. I wasn't, this was like the beginning of my, I guess you could say, my relationship with someone at Marvel. And not until like later on, years later, did will.i.am actually presented me with this book called Masters of the Sun that my partner B. Earl happened to write with Will. And he was like, I don't know where to take this. It was a comic book, and it had an augmented reality application, and it had virtual reality component, but we didn't have a home. So finally I thought like, oh, Daniel Fink, let's take this IP to Marvel. I remember will.i.am was like, nah, dude, Marvel's not gonna even, they're not gonna want to get with this. They want to own everything. So I was like, please, Will, let me just take this to Marvel. So I took it to Marvel. I connected the dots. We had the meeting. Marvel loved the idea of the Black Eyed Peas IP, which is called Masters of the Sun. And we did the whole run with Marvel at Comic-Con, LA Comic-Con, which was called Stan Lee's Kamikaze Con. We did the New York Comic-Con. And during that time period of doing the Black Eyed Peas Masters of the Sun, I was also championing Red Wolf, who was this amazing native hero that spoke to me because I'm Native American and Mexican. And I love heroes that I resonate with. So Red Wolf was my guy, the guy that I always like would champion prior to me having any connection to it, to the storytelling. I was able to do this thing called Becoming Red Wolf on with Marvel. And I actually did a cosplay, and I became Red Wolf.
Seen the video. I've seen it. It's convincing as well. Like,
it was cool, man. It was cool. You know, and I just did it because I loved Comic-Con and I loved this hero, and I wanted to be part of anything Red Wolf. So that was my introduction to the conversation of being part of the Marvel family with Red Wolf. And I remember always wanting to champion the idea of one day I will get to do something with Red Wolf, right? I didn't know what it was going to be. So fast forward after Masters of the Sun, fast forward to maybe a couple of years after that, I get a call from Jason Latore, who was my guy that did Becoming Red Wolf, excuse me. And he's like, yo, Tab, I got this opportunity for you to connect with Joe Quesada, the Godfather, Joey Q.
Yeah.
Joey Q is a big wig when it comes to the bridge between Marvel Comics, illustration, and just all the things that he contributes to Marvel. So we did this thing called Storyboards, which is an interview. We talked about my native representation and how much it matters to me, and how I want to be part of this journey with Red Wolf and how it spoke to me. So I remember telling Joey Q during this interview, I said, man, I wish that I could write something with Marvel. So he's like, Tab, get in the right places. You're in the right place right now, connecting all the dots. And when it presents itself, it's going to happen for you. So I remember that day that we did the interview, Jason Latore is like, yo, Tab, you want to go back to the showroom, the Marvel showroom in New York City? My face lit up like this. And I was like, hell yes, let's go. So we go to the showroom. And then I walk in and I'm meeting everybody. And then I see CB Cebulski. And then I see Tom Brevoort. And I'm like, oh, this is my chance. Wow. So I go in there and kind of like, I get my confidence up. And I'm like, CB, check this out. I start like really, really championing Red Wolf, right? And like saying like, I'm the best representation for this. I want to be a voice. I don't speak for all of us. I just speak as one of us. And as an Indigenous person, I want to bring Red Wolf to life. Can I please write this? So Tom Brevoort says, hey, Tab, we have this thing called Marvel 1000, and it's a one shot. And we would love for you to have an opportunity to take a shot as a writer. So I was like, okay, cool. What do you want me to do? He's like, well, choose a muse. I said, Red Wolf. And so I took Red Wolf, the idea that we created from my experience at Standing Rock was something that B. Earl, my writing partner, and I created, and we put it on the Marvel 1000. And we had the artwork by Jeffrey Varegi, who's a native, amazing relative that's been at Marvel for five years. So from that point on, CB and Tom, they saw my passion, they saw that my work ethic, and they saw that Ben and I, B. Earl, we really, we said we were gonna do it, and we did it. And so then I get a call from Jake Thomas a couple months after, and he's like, yo, dude, we got this opportunity for more native storytelling. So I was like, perfect, bring it on. Werewolf by Night. I'm like, Werewolf by Night, Jack Russo. Oh, Jack Russell. Oh man, this is an old school comic. Wait a minute. Yeah. Werewolf by Night. Yo, okay, what do you want me to do with this? Right. So then Ben and I are like listening. He's like, look, we want to revamp Werewolf by Night. We don't want it to be what it was in the past. And I'm thinking like, yo, the comic book purists are gonna be like, what is this guy doing? Changing up Jack Russell or Russo, Jack Russell, right? So he's like, no, don't worry about that. Why don't you make it a native character? Make it an Indigenous representation, because that's who you are. And I was like, okay, cool. So Ben and I, we went into the laboratory. We came up with Jake Gomez. We said, and then Jake Thomas was like, we'll even throw in Red Wolf because we know how much you love Red Wolf. So we put Red Wolf into Werewolf by Night. And we created all these villains. I put my grandmother in there. Granny Rora is my grandma. So I was
going to ask.
Yes, dude.
I was going to ask. And the name as well. There's a lot. And there's even a little Black Eyed Peas like Easter egg in there, isn't there? Like,
yes, sir. And then JJ. Yeah, man, JJ, which is Jet Juliana, that's my daughter's name. So I put JJ, which is Red Wolf partner, as my daughter's name, right? So I incorporated a lot of my own personal backstory. He's Hopi and Mexican. I'm Hopi and Mexican. So I wanted to make sure that, like, when I'm doing panels or interviews, that it represents me. And I'm not just coming up with stuff. Yes, it's a werewolf, but it's not romanticized like the way that Twilight did, where it's like native werewolf guy. Nope, totally opposite. We didn't want to put the werewolf and anything native or indigenous to be a representation, because then it's kind of like it turns people off because it's already been done. And it's a Western mentality way of thinking. So we made it about his dad having a curse and his dad being Mexican and getting cursed in Mexico.
Yeah, no, it's a good story. I mean, like I said, I said to you, I read it, and I mean, one page. I mean, I love that the Song of the Wolf page on it's here, issue 3, I think. Such a beautiful, you know, illustration there, and you know, the story that goes with it. And, yeah, it's lovely. I mean, you know, when you get to that part, and almost as well when you're reading through the book and you get to that page and you're then in the book, because obviously he's drawing it for him, and it's a really good book. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, I'm interested to see where it goes. Red Wolf in the MCU, you know, your name's in the hat, yeah, like throw it in. It's done. So let's take it back to the toys then. So, you know, you said you've been a collector for as long as you remember. I mean, what do you think started it off for you? What was it about toys and not comic books or television? Or
I'm a big TV buff too, dude. I actually I thought I was gonna make it in acting before we made it as Black Eyed Peas, because I was taking acting classes at the same time that I was performing with the Peas in the 90s. But fortunately, my music career took off, but I always had a love for film, television, animation, storytelling, especially when it comes to Indigenous representation, because it matters. And it's something that I've learned throughout my growth, my evolution as a voice, as an advocate, as an activist, to be able to give back to my communities and shine the light, but make it inclusive too, man. Like, I don't want to alienate anybody, because if I don't do that with my music, and I'm all about love and positivity, why would I do that with my comics or with the stuff that I create? So although there's a foundation, whether it's Indigenous storytelling or like a native lens, I want to make sure that everybody rocks with it and everybody feels the heart, the passion, the humor, the empathy, the respect, all the things that every human feels, no matter what color you are or what background you are. And that's something that I learned as I got older. And so film and television has always been part of my narrative. But toys, it just takes me back to when I was struggling, dude, when I was a kid that just had $1 and a dream. And I would be in my grandmother's living room and she would say, "From Los Angeles, California, give it up for Jimmy Gomez." And I would be performing in her living room. And the smile and the light and all the joy and happiness in her face was the thing that inspired me to chase my dreams, bro.
Yeah.
To go after my dreams and my aspirations. So that same type of approach that my grandmother gave me, the love and the nurturing and the understanding, is the same way that I am with my kids. So the toys is just an extension of that time period and the nostalgia that the toys bring. They take me back to my grandmother's living room. Because while I was dancing, you best believe I had my G.I Joe action figures and I would go outside and play. You best believe that I had my He-Man, versus Skeletor. And I had my Transformers. And yes, I had GoBots. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, GoBots were the first before Transformers. Although they didn't have the same type of impact. No. I had some GoBots.
Amazing.
And you best believe I had my LJN wrestlers, dude. I'm a big wrestling fan. I cannot deny that, dude. Like, I'm a big fan. I've been to Survivor Series. I've been to SummerSlams. I've been to WrestleManias. But it always goes back to the toys. Yeah. It always goes back to, like, with music or with storytelling, there's always the product, right? Like, what is it? Is it t-shirts? Is it hats? Is it beanies? Is it wristbands? Or is it toys? And so for me, it's always been the toys, the love for toys and advocating and seeing the boxes and seeing the grade and the way that it was made, what year it was made, the company it was made by, being a student, digging in the crates like I'm digging in the crates for vinyl. It's the same thing. Yeah. I go to different countries and I get a specific G.I Joe that's only in Brazil, and it has the Portuguese writing in the back, and it's like 1980 something, and then it's made by so those type of things is the things that I geek off of, because I go hunting. I'm a toy hunter, and that's why I was part of the Toy Hunter TV series with Jordan Hembrough, and that was like my first introduction to like the world seeing like, oh, one of the Black Eyed Peas is actually a toy hunter. Oh, okay, cool. And then slowly but surely, not everybody knows, but the ones that know are the ones that understand being students of the game and those like-minded people that are actually into the toy world.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, very similar. I mean, it was my grandmother as well. Like, she used to take me out and we'd go to like, they're called boot sales over here, but like the flea markets and stuff like that.
Flea markets,
and
exactly.
That's it. She would pick me up like you would get 5 or 6 comics for like $1, and none of them would, the stories wouldn't match. So you'd have like part 2 of one and part 3, and then obviously from that came the toys, and as you say, the physical representation. And again, for me, it's getting to the stage where you can think back to when you couldn't afford to have a full set. You'd look at the back of a card and you would see all 10 figures, but you could only get like 1 or 2 or something like that. And, so being able to now kind of collect them up and introduce that to my children, that's a huge thing for me. That's a huge part of what it is. And
it's funny, dude. It's funny because like I sent you that video of my daughter saying like, oh, I love Danny Moonstar, because when you have an action figure that happens to be a native hero, for my daughter, that represents her. And that represents all little, native girls or indigenous girls or girls from underserved communities or of color. And the more we have that representation, the more we have heroes without capes, then you understand like that's the beauty of being able to have that moment be so innocent, but yet so priceless, because then now my daughter can say like, I can go buy this action figure that looks like me and happens to be a strong native woman.
No, I think that's incredible. I mean, especially, with the technology they have nowadays as well, where they can do such good representation on, like, even just with the Hasbro, the Marvel Legends, how, like the photoreal technology they're using now, so that, the stuff is, they're real people, they're not just pieces of plastic, they are real people. It's funny you should say about
dude, like, stuff. Honestly, the technology and the intricacies, is that the word, intricacies?
That's it, yeah.
Right? Don't worry, I'm a rapper. I'll phonetically spell it out.
I know where you're going.
So the way that they put all the details and the attention to details, especially when I was watching the Hasbro Pulse event, and the way Dwight Stahl was talking about the parts of one of the action figures and how far the joints movement, the arms, the feet, like that type of stuff is the thing that gets me excited too, man, because you appreciate the action figures. Like the LJN wrestlers, they were just like this. You couldn't really move their arms. They're just like, they're rubber wrestlers, and you could throw them and bounce them, but you couldn't move their arms up and down. So, it's cool to see how far they've come with that.
The going back to wrestling figures, my original collection of like the WWF ones of but there was no movement, and each one would have that you'd either pull him down and he would jump, or you'd have the swinging arm. That's it. The bushwhackers would do the arms. Like, that's it. Yeah. So seeing that now, how far they've come is amazing. So obviously wrestling figures was a big thing. What do you think your collection? What mainly makes up your collection now? Is there a particular like line or theme that makes up your collection, or is it just everything?
I would say G.I Joe and LJN are my two biggest. And LJN, I mean, dude, like it was hard to describe the emotion that I would feel when I would get a new wrestler, and it started with the love of like seeing the Dragon Ricky Steamboat battling, fighting against a Ric Flair in WCW or NWA days, and then seeing Hulk Hogan against the Iron Sheik, and then Hulk Hogan versus Roddy Piper, and like that nostalgia for me before WrestleMania happened, the first WrestleMania, when they brought in the whole Mr. T and the Cyndi Lauper angle. Like I was all about wanting to experience the joy and the fun and the excitement that I had when I would be watching WWF when I wasn't watching it. So I was like, wow, what's the best way to represent that? Oh, wrestlers, LJN wrestlers. Okay, cool. So I would go, and I remember my mom always used to say, I only get paid once a month. So I would wait to like ask for the right time to get new wrestlers, but I always looked for that. And then go into Target or KB Toy Store or not Target. I'm sorry, Target wasn't in the 80s. It was Toys R Us. Toys R Us and KB Toy Store here in the United States, and looking for Spirit, which was a native character from G.I Joe. He had an eagle on his hand. Spirit. they call him the tracker. But wanting to find heroes that look like me.
Of course.
Whether it was a Mexican luchador or it was like a native hero. You know, Billy Jack Haynes or Billy Jack or you know, Tatanka.
Yes.
From WWF. Like, these were the people that I looked at like, oh yeah, he's a native guy like me. So I need to be that guy because I resonate with that guy. You know, he speaks to me. Tito Santana, he was a Mexican wrestler and he resonated with me. Mil Máscaras, Rey Mysterio, because he's Mexican. He's from California, San Diego. So all these things is something that was very important to me. So I would say LJN wrestlers and G.I Joe, because those were my two go-to holy grails. And my collection just started getting bigger and bigger, but I've really focused on LJN, WWF wrestlers, and G.I Joes.
So I've got to ask then, because obviously Hasbro have recently re-released the G.I Joe line in like 6-inch figures, much more detailed. What are your thoughts?
I'm an OG head, and I got love for my Hasbro family because those guys are my guys. You know, I will always salute, but I'm a purist when it comes to my collecting.
That's gotta be that.
Yeah. With the G.I Joes, man, the G.I Joes, like there's something really refreshing when I look at the back and I see the year that it was made and I see the time period, because I'm telling you, dude, there's something with the nostalgia. Nostalgia is everything for me.
Yeah.
I'm not just like hop on the train because it's a new thing or a new reissue. It's like I'm a sneaker collector too. I like the throwback sneakers. I like the Jordans from the 80s. You know, I like a lot of old school stuff because it always takes me back to my innocence, my childhood. And I'm all about holding on to my childhood. Stan Lee taught me that. I was very honored and proud to do panels with Stan Lee while we were promoting the Marvel comic. And
that's amazing.
He was like 90 something years old, and he always told us to hold on to your imagination and never grow up. Never be afraid to be a kid up here and to hold on to that nostalgia and that childhood. Because once you stop being a kid and you start becoming an adult and start acting like an adult, you forget where you come from.
Of course. I was so disappointed. I never got the chance to see him. There was one, because obviously we do Comic Cons over here. We do a couple a year in various different cities and stuff. And there was one opportunity for me when he was coming over to the UK. It must be 10, 12 years ago, maybe, off the top of my head. And I just couldn't make it work. And to this day, I still regret not making it work, not actually just getting up there and joining the queue. But you know, his work, his message, it touches so many people. You know, it obviously lives on through so many people. So amazing.
I mean, dude, like if you think about it, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, like you know, without those legends and those icons setting the tone for us as creatives, as fans, as collectors, just the vision to be able to create heroes. Yes, they had superpowers and they had crazy identity issues and all these things that you deal with. But, you know, on the surface, to be able to gravitate and to create excitement the way that Marvel has created throughout the years. I'm very blessed to be part of that family, man, because it keeps my creative juices. You know, it's like, it's one thing to have my day job, which is Black Eyed Peas. Don't get me wrong. I love my day job. Black Eyed Peas is everything for me. But to be able to bring that same energy that I have as a Black Eyed Pea, to bring it to writing for Marvel,
amazing.
It's not like it, man.
And so ahead of their time as well, you know, when it comes to, you know, diversity and inclusivity and stuff, you know, that they were teaching us lessons like years back that obviously are still so important nowadays. You know, think the whole thing with the X-Men and the stories behind the X-Men and stuff. And I think that's why, you know, a lot of people enjoy the comics for what they are, because they, you know, there are lessons there as well. It's not just, you know, these crazy superpowers and stuff. So, okay, so we talked a little bit about grails, didn't we? You know, you said about a couple of the grails that you have in your collection. If there was one grail, what do you think it would be? What would you pick if you had to say? Someone said to you, you know, what is your grail item? It's a tough one, right?
It's a tough one. I would probably say my my Montreal black card, given to me by Hulk Hogan, 1989 Survivor Series, Survivor Series, black card, Montreal. It was on the Toy Hunter show, because it was from Hulk Hogan himself, you know, and it's carded, it's graded, it's in an amazing display. That one has a lot of sentiment, because it takes me back to how the love for wrestling started. You know, it started with Hogan and Junkyard Dog and Ricky Steamboat and Macho Man and Roddy Piper and the Wild Samoans. You know, like, I could go on and tell you a whole playlist or a whole catalog of why the LJN, why the Survivor Series, or why SummerSlam, why the black card being in such great condition really means everything to me. So I think, you know, and I love my US as flagship, but I could honestly say that it's hard for me to like take it out. It's 7 feet long. I'm like, yo, I don't know where I'm gonna put this. So I'm waiting. My wife actually, she was very patient with me. I sent you a video of my old studio where I had my toys displayed. It was just half of my toys. I couldn't show you everything because it would have been a mess, dude. You have your toys really displayed really nice, and that's amazing. I commend you for that. The organization and the OCD value of that is amazing.
Well, this is my new setup. I've been in this is my office. I've been in here maybe a couple of months now. So it was just kind of an evening. I was like, right, I'm going to get it sorted, because as you say, when you get a collection, it gets to that stage where it's like, if I'm not displaying it, if it's not there for me to enjoy, then, you know, it's wasted. And, you know, you mentioned kids earlier, but for me, you know, I've got 3 children, you know, with another on the way, as I said. But for me, it's sharing it with them that's such a huge thing. And, you know, my 2-year-old comes in during the day and points at the Hulk or points at Iron Man, takes it out, goes and plays with it, you know, and then brings it back and it goes back in. I check it, make sure that it's okay. but that to me is a thing. So having it on display for them, really, as well as much for me, is a huge thing, because, you know, you want to share it, don't you? You want to share the love and stuff.
Yeah, dude. So, I'm trying to teach my son is 12, and then my other son Journey is 10, and I'm teaching him not just about toys but also cards, because they're into Pokemon cards too, like old school Pokemon cards. They got into that a while ago, a couple of years ago, and I was like, yo, hold on to these cards.
Yes.
And so yesterday, hold on, I was like, guys, what are you guys doing with your cards, right? Because they had them on the floor, and like with the Marvel toys that we get from Sideshow or things that Hasbro sends us, we have it displayed too. So my son is showing me the cards that he has, and I'm like, dude, you got to take care of these cards, because these are some, like, you know, these are some valuable cards, right? And so the fact that they're into the collectible side, even with cards, it goes to show that the impact that I have as a collector is starting to really, you know, it's like you're sharing that same type of love, but appreciation. You don't want to mess up your stuff, because at the end of the day, like, this is nostalgia for my kids. When they grow up, they're going to see this box and be like, yo, this is what we had when we were kids. And our dad taught us how to keep it safe and how to really understand that this has value beyond just money, beyond just monetary. It's the nostalgia, man. It's the childhood. It's the narrative, that the banter of going back and forth. And like what I said, my wrestlers, it's a conversation. Because I could go like, oh, you have Roddy Piper? Yeah, Piper, man, Piper's Pit. And it just goes on, becomes a conversation. Oh, wait a minute, you have those Mego toys? Yeah, check this out. This is from Japan, this Batman exclusive Mego, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes into a Japanese conversation about collecting in Japan. So these toys are narrative to my everyday life. And because I've been able to tour, the majority of my toy collection has come from touring, dude. Like, I'm being honest with you. Going around the world, Japan, Hong Kong, France, Brazil, all these places where toys are in that language, like the packaging. I'm like, this is pretty elusive, ladies and gentlemen. like, this is cool. This is different because you don't see that in the States a lot. So when I go to different parts of the world, I like those exclusive toys from that region.
Cool. It's interesting, just tying in what you're saying there and the Pokemon cards, that we come over to the States on holiday every couple of years. Florida mainly, you know, the Disney parks, and obviously, you know, you've got the Marvel and Star Wars there. And for my son, when we came over last, he was 7, I think. And he's hugely into the Pokemon cards, but we don't have the same stores that you guys have, like the Targets and the Walmart, that obviously have these things that, you know, we do have them, but it's not the same as kind of going out and doing a hunt as such. But for my son, when we got there, he obviously had his money for, and we were going Target to Target and Walmart and Walgreens, and he was just like, oh look, there's this, we can't get this tin in the UK, like this particular one. And then getting back to the accommodation and him like opening them up and going through them. And even now, like, you know, a few years down the line, and he's still got those tins, like they're all still there, and the cards are all looked after. And as you say, it's, you know, it rubs off, doesn't it, seeing how you collect and how you look after stuff, and it's enjoyable to see that in the younger generations. For sure. It's interesting, it's, you know, the parallels there in that respect. So when it comes to the hunt and stuff like that, is there anything that you've either sold in the past or passed up at the time that you now kick yourself about and think, you know, I wish I could go back and get that?
That's a great question. I would have to say probably I'm a big basketball fan too, so I would probably say NBA cards that were like when Kobe Bryant was a rookie, and you know, LeBron James was a rookie, and even Michael Jordan, because I was from the 80s, like I came up in the 80s. I remember Michael Jordan going into the NBA. So like, it wasn't necessarily toys, but we're talking as collectors, man. We're having a conversation about collectors. So I would probably say cards, because my kids are into Pokemon cards. I would say like NBA cards or football cards or baseball cards, because I never really got into it like the way that some of my friends did, and they have very valuable cards. My wife has a Kobe Bryant card from when he was a rookie, and it's valued at a high value. So I would probably say I missed my boat on that.
I like how you said your wife. It's hers. It's not collectively yours. It's hers. It's hers. What on that kind of train? What does your wife, what does your family, your close friends, what do they make of collecting? Because I mean, my wife thinks I'm mad, but she understands it. She doesn't get it, but she understands it. What about your close friends?
So my wife, she was patient when I first had my studio, and then when we moved to another house, she was like, sorry dude, like you got to figure it out. So right now, unfortunately, excuse me to all my toy collectors and all my avid you know, displayers. Unfortunately, right now I don't have my collection displayed, and I know that is blasphemy. That is blasphemy, ladies and gentlemen. And I get it. I kick myself in the back too, but it was either, you know, this or sleep on the couch for the rest of my life.
No, that's it. But the time will come.
I'm good. I'll get there. I'll get there, ladies.
The time will come. The time will come. That's it. The time will come.
But my wife, she's been very supportive. She's like, okay, it's either the sneakers, because I have a crazy sneaker collection too, and I'll send you video of that too. I'm a big sneakerhead. So I have like a whole, like what you have right there, display with the toys. I have all my sneakers, dude, like in box, like they're like display cases, but for sneakers. And you know, it's because I perform, man. When I'm performing on stage, I like to wear the coolest or most recent sneakers, because I'm a collector, and people are watching what you're wearing, especially with the shoe game. So that's been part of my thing, is toys and sneakers. That goes hand in hand for me. My brother Apple Diap from the Black Eyed Peas, he's now become a big toy collector. So, you know, he's probably someone that will, in a couple of years, you know, if he keeps on going at the rate that he's going, he's definitely gonna have a nice extensive collection. Will.i.am, he has some toys, but he's not really focused on it the way that Apple and I are. We go to Comic-Con when Comic-Con was on. Every year we would go, and we would definitely come back with a lot of bags from different vendors.
That sounds familiar. It's like heaven, though, isn't it? You go down there, and it's just everything's there. Everything's there.
Going to different aisles, vendors, you know, seeing all the San Diego Comic-Con exclusives.
So you said about Joe earlier. In the interview that you did with him, you talked about like your Star Wars room that you guys were in, and how the toys, like, you know, they activate the inspiration and stuff. Like, what you've got to tell me a little bit about that. That when I heard Star Wars room, I was kind of like, hang on, this is new to me. How does that work?
So in one of our studios, a close friend named JJ, who is he's been with us for many years. He's like a family of the crew, Black Eyed Peas. He's part of the family. I started his collection with a Kenner item, and I gave him something from Kenner, and I told him, look at the year, look at the the way that it was made. I started really making him become a student, right? And I told him about Star Wars, how Kenner set the tone for everything in that time period. And I said, everything else, great, but always focus on Kenner. And if you really understand that, then you'll understand the science and the math behind it. So we started building this room, that one of the studios, with all these different toys, predominantly Kenner. So from action figures to vehicles to life size, small size, everything that was Star Wars, we put it in that room. And that room was what sparked inspiration for Apple and I when we were recording a record called Masters of the Sun. It's on all the streaming services, but it's more hip hop, it's more throwback, because we felt this nostalgia. And so the Star Wars room is a room at the studio that we record at, where we get inspiration, and it kind of like shows our love for that time period.
That's fantastic. That's amazing. I've just obviously I have a small Star Wars collection. That's mine's predominantly Marvel, but I do have a small Star Wars section. And I recently got sent the Mandalorian helmet that they've just released, and my son went crazy, absolutely crazy. And then awesome. I got a replica lightsaber, and I was just a big kid, and I got my boys, and they've got their lightsabers, and then Dad pulls out the big kind of like authentic looking one. But you got to play, haven't you? You got to play.
Man, honestly, dude, last month I went to Disneyland. And it was a 15% capacity, and it was mindful and safe. Everybody was cool, and I got to ride the new Star Wars ride, which was amazing.
I actually, the last time I was in Florida, we left the day before their Galaxy's Edge opened. I was absolutely kicking myself when I saw the dates. I was like, no, our vacation is going to end the day before. So I will come back. I'll have to come back
dude, it was amazing, dude. It was like 3 rides in one, and it was 5 to 7 minutes long.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's last question then. Let's round this up. If there was and I think I know where the answer to this one, I really do. But if there was one character or one item that you could see in action figure form, who would it be?
So my brother Jacob, he just posted an amazing post that I was so happy to see, which happens to be the new book that I'm writing with my partner B. Earl, inked by Paul Davidson. And the name of it is Kushala, the Spirit Rider. And it's from the Ghost Rider universe. And this Sorceress Supreme is an Apache woman that is a matriarch of the Marvel universe. So I would have to go with Kushala. So Marvel Legends. My brother Jacob already made an attempt. He put something out there, and it looks amazing.
Thank you.
Dwight, Stevie, Steve Evans, Ryan Ting, Dan, guys, Olivia.
It's we talk about this one here. This.
Boom! Look at that beauty.
There she is. Ooh. So I the story for me, I mean, obviously I can't wait to read the book when it's finally available, but there was something about obviously her backstory and why she became the Spirit of Vengeance, but then also tied in with becoming the Sorcerer Supreme, and seeing those two like huge characters in the Marvel universe in one person. It sounds incredible. So when I saw it, and obviously finishing up Werewolf by Night, there was the advert at the back for obviously that one come in, and then that got me reading and various different articles, and I found some artwork online, and that's kind of where, because that's something I do. I have various different bits and bobs of action figures. I've got boxes of heads and limbs and stuff like that. So I see these characters that they're not made yet, and just for my own personal collection, I need that person in my collection. And then if they do an official one, it's kind of like, okay, well, I can retire that now and replace it with the official one. But she's definitely a cool one. Thank you so much, Taboo. Like, I really appreciate it. Really appreciate taking the time out of your day to speak to us and do this. That's, thank you so much.
Of course, man. It's an honor and it's a pleasure, man. Keep doing what you're doing. You're inspiring all of us. I mean, B. Earl, my partner, B. Earl, we had a conversation about your toy collection and just what you mean to all of us, because you inspire us with the fact that you're able to create an action figure of our matriarch Kushala without even anyone else taking that chance, but you seeing something in it before it even hits the stores. Like, it means a lot, man. And when someone is behind our matriarch, we want to support and show our love. So thank you.
No problem at all. No problem at all.